Hey, I'm Big Booty 17, and this is the fastest fully AFK tree farm with a YouTube tutorial. It works with both dark oak and the newer pale oak tree, producing an insane 61,000 drops per hour, including 53,000 logs, all while still being optimized for simplicity and survival-friendly building. Despite these high rates, this is all of the redstone required, streamlined to be as easy to follow along as possible without sacrificing any speed of the farm. Like all true tree farms, it's self-sustaining, generating unlimited saplings, so all you need is to supply bone meal. For those familiar with dark oak farms, you know that many designs require a beacon or constant healing to survive the TNT blasts. This farm completely removes that issue by positioning the player outside of the explosion, allowing you to build and use it without needing a beacon or relying on outside healing. And before we get into the build, I'll break down the mechanics that makes this farm so powerful and the evolution of its design. Then we'll go step by step through the build and cover some optional upgrades. One of the biggest challenges in dark oak farms is maintaining a positive sapling return. As a 2x2 tree, dark oak requires 4 saplings per growth cycle, but it produces fewer leaves than other tree types. Since each leaf only has a chance to drop a sapling, fewer leaves means fewer opportunities to recover the 4 saplings needed to keep the farm running. The more TNT you use, the more damage items take, leading to lost drops, including saplings. Plus, having fewer TNT dupers makes the farm easier to build. So to keep things simple while maximizing sapling return and log yield, we need a way to make each explosion as efficient as possible. And that's where B36 comes in. B36, or block 36, is what the game calls any block being actively pushed by a piston. These blocks have almost zero blast resistance, which means if we time our TNT explosion while the logs are moving, we can blow up far more logs than usual. This is because the game does not consider them logs at the time of explosion, but considers them block 36. To prove this, we can even blow up blocks that are normally explosion-proof. Watch what happens when we use this mechanic to explode ancient debris. This farm takes full advantage of that mechanic. When the farm cycles, the explosion happens right as the logs are pushed, destroying much more of the tree and keeping the build efficient with just one TNT duper instead of many. To further protect the saplings and improve our rates, TNT is held in place on Obsidian, allowing the tree to generate with TNT inside of the trunk. Because the explosion is trapped within the logs, the TNT does not have a direct line of sight to the items, meaning each item only takes 1 damage as it escapes. As mentioned earlier, we protect our items by placing the explosion inside of the tree. To understand why this reduces the damage each item takes to just 1, you should know how damage is calculated from explosions in Minecraft. When an explosion occurs, Minecraft simulates it by drawing multiple invisible lines called rays from the explosion center to help calculate damage to entities, like players or items. Exposure is defined as the proportion of these rays that reach an entity unobstructed. This means without intersecting any block hitboxes from the explosion center. In our case, TNT explodes inside of the tree, meaning the surrounding logs block all explosion rays from reaching any items, resulting in an exposure value of 0. This value we've gotten for exposure is then scaled by the explosion's diminishing force, and further reduced by the entity's highest blast protection level, which in the case of items is nothing. This gives us the impact. The final damage an item takes is determined by both the game's difficulty setting and the explosion power. However, when the sum of the impact and its square is reduced to 0 because our exposure is 0, that product is eliminated, leaving only the constant damage of 1. For this farm, the player doesn't take any damage simply because they're positioned outside of the explosion radius. Since Minecraft only calculates damage for entities within the explosion radius, the player isn't factored into the damage calculation at all. This allows the farm to run continuously without risking player health or requiring external healing methods like beacons. So, while this explains how items survive the explosions, what about the blocks themselves, specifically the leaves and logs we actually want to destroy? For block destruction, the game creates a total of 1,352 rays from the explosion center for directional purposes. These rays are then normalized by the maximum range of the explosion, and each is assigned an intensity value calculated by multiplying the explosion's power by a random factor between 0.7 and 1.3. This intensity number is used to determine how many blocks along the ray are blown up. Then, for each of these 1,352 rays, the process is as follows. Starting at the explosion center, the game checks the block at that position. And if the block at the point of the explosion is not air, the ray's intensity is reduced by an amount based on the block's blast resistance, specifically by this number. If the explosion starts inside of a block that cannot be blown up, for example one with too high of a blast resistance, all the rays lose their intensity immediately during this initial origin check. This happens because the reduction applied is greater than the starting intensity of the rays in all directions, resulting in no destruction. This principle can be reversed to destroy blocks underwater. By shifting the explosion center into a solid block, we bypass the high blast resistance of water that it would otherwise originate in. If there's any remaining intensity after the previously mentioned reduction, the block is added to the list of blocks to be destroyed. The ray then moves forward 0.3 blocks, and the process repeats at the new position. The next block is checked, and its scaled blast resistance is subtracted from the remaining intensity, just like the origin check. This cycle of moving the position and subtraction will continue until the intensity drops to 0 or below 0, or the ray reaches the end of its range. Once all 1352 rays have been processed, the game shuffles the list of blocks slated for destruction and removes them. Note that a single block can reduce the intensity for multiple rays, and the same ray might be affected by the same block more than once if geometry allows. This is because blocks are only removed after all rays have been checked. This is why reducing the blast resistance of our logs is so effective. By lowering the variable that diminishes the ray intensity, the rays can travel further, queuing more blocks for destruction with each explosion. This increases the number of logs broken per TNT, greatly reducing the amount that we would need. As mentioned earlier, the minimum damage an item takes in the explosion radius is 1, and since an item's total health is 5, using fewer TNT explosions gives items more time to exit the collection pool safely. This balance between maximizing the amount of blocks we destroy and minimizing the amount of items we lose is key to how many drops you're going to get. While B36 is at the core of this farm, it also introduced its own challenges. In early tests, this farm ran by firing pistons every cycle, which worked great most of the time. However, there was a chance that a tree would fail to grow for several cycles, leaving no logs behind when the TNT exploded. This would cause the dirt to explode, making it impossible to continue placing saplings. At this point, with reliability still an issue, I shelved the project and moved on to other builds. However, I had been posting updates in our Discord archive of reliable farms, and that's when Scorpio, who is, in my opinion, one of the best active technical Minecrafters today, showed interest in collaborating. Over the course of the following month, we slowly recruited a global roster of talent, including Scorpio, Mystery XY, and Sam, who worked on the most minute optimizations to refine this farm. This concept originally came from Squilly's semi-automatic farm, and we took it to its absolute limits. The final version we developed became the fastest explosion-based dark oak farm, reaching an insane 82,000 items per hour. Now you might be thinking, this is not the same farm I have been showing in this video, and you would be partially right. In pushing this concept to the max, we added a few mechanics, while very useful for pure efficiency, made the build a bit too impractical, in my opinion, for a block-by-block tutorial. These features were added incrementally, so I knew exactly what could be removed while still maintaining high rates and gaining simplicity. The farm in this tutorial is a stripped-down version of our final design, keeping only what's needed to maintain high rates without the complexity. While the maxed out version pushed this concept to the mathematical limit, this version keeps it survival friendly while being the fastest tree farm with a tutorial on YouTube, producing over 61,000 items per hour. When reviewing the farm for simplicity, we distilled it down to 3 core mechanics that make it as efficient and reliable as possible. Exact explosion timings for B36 efficiency, a logical redstone method that only pushes dirt if logs are present, preventing the dirt from ever exploding, and held TNT placed inside of the tree as it grows to protect items in the collection pool. If you've enjoyed the video so far, consider subscribing. There is no guarantee the YouTube algorithm will bring you back, and I make videos like this sporadically when time allows. If you think more people should see this, liking and commenting helps the video reach a wider audience. And if you have any questions or want to see my other farms, including ones without videos, consider joining the Discord. We have farm creators from around the world working to create and maintain a reliable catalog of Minecraft farms. I'd like to specifically thank Hanalea for graciously answering my questions about dark oak trees and sapling returns. And another thanks to JJL21 who helped with the TNT explanation. I'd also like to thank everybody in Nubtech and Tree Huggers who helped out. Here are the materials you'll need to build the farm. You will only ever need 2 water buckets at one given time, but having 3 can make certain steps a bit more convenient. You'll also need dark oak or pale oak saplings, 1 for the farm's item filter. I recommend starting with around a stack to place to protect against bad RNG. Once the farm has been running for a while, sapling returns are no longer a concern. Keep in mind this farm requires Bonemeal to operate. As usual, you can use any variant of fence gate, trapdoor, solid block, slab, and stair. It's a good idea to have some extra building blocks on hand as well. You will need a minimum of 21 by 19 blocks, with at least 25 blocks of vertical clearance. This farm is directional, meaning it must be built facing in the correct way due to how dark and pale oak trees generate. Getting the initial placement is crucial. To make this easier, I will be displaying my direction in the top right corner of the screen so you can follow along accurately. Once the first blocks are placed correctly, maintaining the correct orientation becomes much simpler, as you can use those blocks as reference points for the rest of the build. Now, let's get to building. Facing west, place 2 blocks right and 1 left, leaving a 2x2 gap in the center. Then add redstone dust as shown and place a 2x2 of upward facing sticky pistons in the gap. Facing west, extend the dust line from the second block on the right. Leave a 1 block gap to place a solid block with observer facing away from it. Add dust in front of the observer's face, then place 3 repeaters, 2 at max delay and 1 at 3/4 delay. Then have this partial delay repeater power a solid block. Place a redstone torch on the opposite side of this solid block to power a repeater. Then add a solid block followed by another repeater and another solid block. Set both of these repeaters to max delay. You should now have a clock with 4 repeaters at max delay and 1 at 3/4 delay. Place a solid block diagonally adjacent to the observer with a repeater at half of its maximum delay. Leave a 1 block gap, then place a solid block with a sticky piston behind it, positioned to push this block. Place a lever 1 block away from this repeater. Run a dust line from it and add a locking repeater at half of the maximum delay. Like all repeaters in this build, this delay is critical. Extend the dust line from the lever to 1 block behind the sticky piston. Then place a dropper with observer facing into it, then add dust on top. Next, place dirt on top of the sticky pistons. Then place upwards facing droppers on 2 sides of the redstone cross. Place hoppers feeding into each dropper. Then place a barrel on top of each hopper to supply bone meal. Above each dropper, place an inward-facing dispenser. Then, while facing west, place a leaf block to the right of the dropper. You should see the clock to your right while facing this direction. Drop down and place an observer facing the leaf. Extend the 2 block row behind the observer by 4 more blocks. Then run 6 redstone dust along the top of these blocks and place 2 solid blocks with repeaters facing towards the sticky pistons. Set these 2 repeaters to maximum delay and place blocks so the top one is powered by the repeaters. Facing west, place 1 redstone dust as shown, then remove the 3 blocks from the ground. In front of the dust, place 2 upwards facing droppers, and in the gap, place a hopper and redstone torch. Next, place a comparator facing out from the hopper, powering a solid block. Run 2 redstone dust from this block back to the torch, then place a hopper facing into the comparator. It's important that this hopper does not face one of the droppers. Near the dropper, place a slab which will be waterlogged later. Next, build retaining walls using full blocks. Extend one block past the hopper using a slab above the torch. On top of the eastmost retaining wall, place an inwards facing sticky piston in its solid block on the outer edge. Then, place a rail and open trapdoor. Place the minecart, then break the rail. Jump over the repeaters and place 2 blocks. Run 3 blocks along each side of the dirt, connecting to a stair in the corner. Finally, place a full block next to the south dispenser. Place a block over the piston, then add 2 more as shown. Near the piston, place a trapdoor and 2 top slabs. Next, place a temporary block in the corner to position 2 more blocks around it, and remove the temporary block. Repeat this in the opposite corner, placing a temporary block and positioning 2 blocks around it. Remove it and connect this side using solid blocks. Head north and place a trapdoor opposite to the redstone torch. Then place scaffolding above both the block and trapdoor, and add 2 more scaffolding above the trapdoor until you're level with the highest block in the farm. Finally, place top slabs extending back to the middle chamber. You should have placed 7 slabs to meet the middle chamber. Next, we'll outline the water collection pool and then fill in the rectangle, which I'll guide you through block by block. This pool will extend 5 blocks to the east, 6 blocks to the south, and 5 blocks to the west. We'll start by extending 5 blocks to the west, then 5 blocks to the east, and finally 6 blocks to the south to complete our outline for our water collection pool. From here, connect the slabs to form a rectangle, then fill in the empty sections with top slabs to complete our water platform. Next, we'll outline the corners as shown to create retaining walls. This top-down view is for clarity, and I'll guide you step by step on how to build it in just a moment. Place 1 block diagonally from each corner of the slab platform, then add 2 blocks on either side of it, and repeat this for all 4 corners to start our outline. Now, connect the corners using full blocks to complete the retaining wall outline. The north side with scaffolding will be slightly different. Leave a gap for the scaffolding and raise it by 1 block so it matches the height of the retaining walls. Next, align yourself with the leaf and walk west. Replace the retaining wall block in that spot with a stair. Then head east and replace the 2 blocks with stairs, making sure that you are aligned with the dirt blocks. Put 16 scaffolding in your hotbar and head to the north side. Extend the scaffolding tower by those 16 blocks, then bridge out using 12 slabs towards the center of the farm. Then return to the tower to raise it by 1 final scaffolding. At the end of the bridge, place 2 chests as shown. Then place a fence gate, followed by another chest, and make sure to open the fence gate to allow TNT to pass through. Place a temporary block above the chest where water will go. Next, build retaining walls around the area, and remove this temporary block to place water. If done correctly, there should be no spillage. Place 2 slabs opposite the bridge. Then, extend the retaining wall by 3 blocks above the bridge, with 1 block centered among them. Use the center block to place a piston, then use the chest to place another piston. Between these pistons, place a note block, redstone dust, and a repeater set to half of its maximum delay. Place an observer facing away from the bridge and TNT next to it. Then place a note block above the TNT and an observer looking at this note block, powering the centermost piston. Here's a third-person view of the TNT Duper so you can double-check your build. To connect the duper to the clock, place an observer facing the scaffolding, powering a solid block. Then run redstone dust up to the block next to the piston. As one of the final steps, we'll place water in the collection pool. Since this layout is irregular, I'll walk you through where to place the water sources. To make this easier, we'll first mark spots where water shouldn't go, using blocks. In my case, I'm using red concrete. I'll go through it with you step by step, so you can follow along and double check your placements as we go. Let's start marking those spots. Facing west, don't place water 1 block to the left and 2 blocks to the right of the stair. Facing south, position yourself between the trapdoor and stair. Then walk straight to the retaining wall, and mark the 2 blocks that line up with this path. To the east, simply avoid placing water on either side of the stairs. Now that our markers are in place, begin placing water along the far edges of the pool, making sure to avoid the spaces we marked. Additionally, waterlog every stair, but be careful not to waterlog the scaffolding or the slab floor by accident. Again, be careful not to waterlog the scaffolding, or you may need to redo the clock below. In the center, waterlog this stair, then place 2 more water sources as shown. You should see the water flow directly into the stair. Above the south dispenser, pillar up on 5 temporary blocks, then place an obsidian. And remove the temporary blocks. With all of our water placed, open the trapdoor to descend and configure the filter hopper. To do this, place 1 dark oak sapling or pale oak sapling in the first slot. Then distribute the 21 items as shown. Let's set up the storage for the farm. Place 2 leaves and a stone cutter, leaving a space in the center. Then extend our future water stream out by 2 slabs with a chest on top. Begin placing 5 double chests diagonally from this chest as shown. From the end of our 5 double chests, leave a 2 block gap, then place 2 more double chests. Now, place hoppers pointing into each chest. From the stone cutter, place walls extending over to the last hopper. Then extend the future water stream by 1 slab and place a wall on top. In the corner between the walls, place a soul sand and light it on fire to prevent items building up when the storage is full. Next, place slabs over the remaining chests to contain the water. Then add water as shown to carry items along the hoppers. Waterlog both of these leaves. Now, place a slab as shown, jump up and look inside of the chamber to waterlog our final slab to finish our storage system. My preferred way of running this farm is to rebind your place key to the spacebar. This has the added benefit of being slightly more bone meal efficient and increases the amount of logs per hour compared to normal placement. Plus you don't need to touch your mouse, which is helpful in this farm since it requires a specific placement angle. If you rebind, you'll see that benefit by changing the delay on this repeater, although it's not required. To load bone meal, simply put some in both barrels. Flick this lever to start the farm, then walk over and enter the minecart. From here, you're going to want to aim at the back 2 dirt blocks. This is where you'll be placing the saplings. If you're having trouble lining it up, you can lower your FOV to get the clearer look at the back blocks. And of course, this placement method works the same for both pale and dark oak. If you only need a small amount of either wood, there's no need to reconfigure the filter. However, if you plan to AFK for an extended period of time with the other tree type, you should remove the existing saplings from the filter and replace it with a sapling of your desired tree type. For those planning to AFK for longer sessions, I'll be posting more long-term bone meal and storage solutions in the Discord. As always, I hope you enjoy this farm. If you want to see more, consider subscribing because there's no guarantee that the algorithm will bring you back. And if you want others to find this video, liking, commenting, and watching the first half helps immensely. Thanks for watching.